Hey, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Killing Me Smalls podcast. I've got my favorite guest joining me today, and that is my buddy Keith Pompe from the Philadelphia Inquirer. He does a great podcast called Locked On Sixers, where he does it about 5 days a week. He is your beat writer from the Philadelphia Inquirer. And you know what? Your Philadelphia 76ers are the number one team in the East right now. Doc Rivers was coach of the month. Joel Embiid was player of the month. Things are rolling, and nobody better to talk to about it than my guy, Keith Pompe. What's up, buddy?
What's up, man? Isn't it kind of weird to say that the Sixers are in first place? They have a
Mm-hmm.
player that's a player of the month and the
Mm-hmm.
coach of the month. I remember a couple of years ago, dude, we were covering some lopsided losses.
Yeah, we were playing it out, waiting for the lottery pick and hoping some of the guys that they picked would turn into something. And now you've got some somethings and let's see what it turns into. I look back on this season and it was kind of James Harden or bust. And
hmm
since the trade of Harden to the Nets, it's almost like the Sixers have found themselves.
Yeah, you can say that. But I still think it's still early days for the Sixers. And the reason why I say that is, you look at it, they have 4 wins against teams as of today who have a winning record.
Right.
And they beat Boston twice. They defeated the
Without
Lakers, which was
Tatum.
a huge win.
Yeah.
Yeah, which was a huge win. And they also defeated the Indiana Pacers. Now they did that one. That was a huge game. They did it without Joel Embiid, but at the same time, we can't exclude that they only have three. They only defeated 3 teams with a winning record right now. And I think that when you look at it, they're still trying to find themselves. I know it's 21 games, but they're still trying to find themselves, and we'll see later on, if this team is legit or not.
I was going to ask you, and you really led right into it, and that is this record fool's gold? I mean, really, they beat one really good team this year, the Lakers, and that was a great win. It was one that they played really well for all but about 3 minutes of it, which they almost gave away at the end. But it was a really good effort by the entire team. But to your point, I mean, they beat a depleted Miami team. They beat Boston without Jason Tatum. The Indiana win was exciting, but it was far from an epic classic. So, my question to you is, this team almost pulled the trigger to trade for James Harden. We may never know how close it actually came, but we know it came real close to trading Ben Simmons and a bunch of other stuff. And my question to you is, do you have any thoughts that Daryl Morey might say, you know what? Maybe we're good enough to go as is?
I think that Daryl Morey, and I hate to speak for him, but he's a guy that's known for making trades.
Right.
He's a guy that's known for like upgrading, and the Sixers may still need to do an upgrade. Now, again, Ben Simmons is playing a lot better. He's playing like a guy who doesn't want to get traded. You know what I mean? He's attacking the basket. He's doing all the things that he's supposed to do. But I think that JJ Redick wants out of New Orleans. He said that the Sixers are one of the teams that he would love to go to. The Sixers, New York, Brooklyn, and Boston. So with that being said, the Sixers, made that call to say, hey, what are you guys serious? So what that's telling me is when you look at this roster, yes, they do have the best record. I'm not saying it's fool's gold because they played and they are a good team. However, what I am saying is that it's still they've only had their starters for less than half of the games together playing.
Right.
So we really don't know what they're going to do. Now, I think that when they go down to Brooklyn, when they play Brooklyn on Saturday, that's going to be a test. I think when they go out west, that's going to be a test. And then we'll have a better idea. The trade deadline isn't until like March, like I believe it's March the 27th.
Yep.
So with that being said, they still have time to evaluate things. But I mean, when you look at this roster, I can't say that this is a roster that can beat Brooklyn in a 7 game series. I don't know if they can beat Boston in a 7 game series. Milwaukee, now again, they are winning the games that they should win. but they also let some slip away, that they shouldn't have. So to
Right.
me, it's one of those things we still have to see. Like the test is going to be after this next couple of weeks after this road trip.
It's interesting. If you think about if they made the Harden deal, it made sense, right? I mean, what you're doing is you're pairing an all-time elite scorer with Embiid. And, you talk about spacing and everything else, it would have been scary. And when Embiid's off the floor, it's a guy that could win a game by himself. They don't have anybody like that. When Embiid's not there, that could win a game without him single-handedly, despite the heroics of the Indiana game the other night. But when you think about it, you think about that 2018 team, with Bellinelli and Ilyasova. That was a team that provided spacing, but absolutely no defense on the perimeter, right? Ben Simmons wasn't who he is today as a
Mm-hmm.
defender. And, they really got torched defensively on the perimeter. Then you look at last year, they needed shooting desperately. What do they need now? Is it somebody that can be an alpha dog and take over a game? I'm trying to think of what the perfect acquisition would be.
They need an elite scorer from the perimeter. They need a guy who can be. They need like a James Harden type. I mean, they can't get James Harden,
Right.
but that's what they need. They need a guy who. I mean, you look at a guy like Tobias Harris. He's having a phenomenal year. He's a power forward. I'm talking
Yeah.
about a guard. They need a guard who can spread the floor. He can excel in the pick and roll. He could do whatever he wants, but he could take a lot of the pressure off of Joel. Because as good as the Sixers are right now, and they are playing at a high level, this reminds me of that team from 2018 when they had all the shooters. They did everything they did. They looked great, but they didn't have a guy who could get his own shot in the perimeter in the playoffs. And that's what the Sixers need to go through that next step. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Ben Simmons is playing well, very well right about now, but they still need a guard who can get his own shot and do the things that Ben doesn't do.
Well, Bradley Beal, Zach LaVine. Anything else out there that you might expect to that might be available?
From the people that I talk to, and they've been saying this for the last 2 years, the Sixers can want Bradley Beal as much as they want, right? But they're
Yeah.
not going to get him. Great guy, but not going to get him. My thing with Zach, I don't know how Zach is going to fit in. I mean, Zach LaVine, he can get his own shot. He can shoot the three. He can drive the lane. He's extremely athletic. But when he's over there with the Bulls, he's the guy. He's the
Yeah.
guy on a team of young guys that they're not very good. The highlight is looking at Cleveland games and saying, how many points did Zach have last night? Now, how will that mesh playing with Tobias Harris, playing with Joel Embiid, and Steph Curry has to get a little bit of shots. I think if he comes in and he becomes extremely ball dominant, then it's not really going to work out. It's going to destroy that chemistry. So that's the question. That's the question mark. Or do you want to destroy that chemistry by bringing him in here?
You talked on your podcast this morning about this is the first time you've seen Embiid and Simmons really connect on and off the court. So I've
Mm-hmm.
got to think that I think the preference would be to not trade Simmons and add to it. Would you agree with that?
It would be, but if you want to get an elite guy, you may have to get rid of an elite guy. But yeah,
Yeah.
their preference would be, it would be. But again, we're saying this right now. Like, again, I know this has been 21 games, but it's still early days. Because
Yeah.
when you think about it, every test that they had thus far, either besides the Lakers, right? Either they had a key guy who didn't play, or the opposing team had key guys who didn't
Right.
play. So I mean, I think it's 21 games, but I think it's all going to play out. I think it's all going to play out.
What's interesting is on the coaching front, Doc Rivers, coach of the month. I don't know if Brett Brown ever got a coach of the month, if I recall. And I know a lot of people were skeptical that a coaching change is going to make that much of a difference, especially when Doc started out talking that, he's not going to change a whole lot in terms of the actions, et cetera. What do you think the difference? I mean, I've got some thoughts, honestly, about what I see as the difference. What do you see as the difference between a Doc Rivers coach team and a Brett Brown coach team?
No offense to Brett Brown. Now, Brett Brown did get it once. I think he got it November 2019. I believe that's when it was. Um,
Okay.
or was it November 2018? It was when he got one. He got one. Yeah, it was in 2018. I think Doc is coaching. I mean, I think Brett, what he did was he kind of managed a little bit. He
Yeah.
tried to manage. And, when you went to the game, you always saw Brett Brown standing up, looking at the sheet that they gave him, and calling out stuff. And then also you would see guys get up. Like they knew when they were going in. It wasn't the feel of the game. It was like,
Yeah.
oh man, 6 minutes left in the quarter. Let me get up and walk to the scorer's table. It's not that way with Doc Rivers. He looks over or he looks at Sam Cassell. Sam Cassell looks over and goes and gets someone and they come in the game. Coming out of timeouts, he's always drawing up plays. I think that what Doc Rivers is doing is he's not trying to fit people into a system. He's trying to play to their strengths. A prime example, Tobias Harris. When Tobias Harris was traded to the Sixers, everyone thought that, oh my gosh, we got Tobias Harris. It's great. We're done now. We got Tobias Harris. And then all of a sudden they start saying, wow, look at this guy. Oh my gosh, he's stealing money, right? And but when you looked at it, it was always that Tobias was always basically standing in the corner, right? Waiting for like someone to pass him the ball. And then whenever he got the ball, he's rushing shots because he doesn't know when he's going to get it back. Well, right now, it's like Doc is playing to Tobias' strength. And then you look at Tobias, and now you're saying, whoa, Tobias got it better. No, he didn't get better. It's just that he's being utilized better now. And I think that's an example of some of the things that Doc is doing. And he makes in-game adjustments. Like, for instance, when they played Indiana, and Indiana called that timeout, and the Sixers came out of the timeout with 6:38 left with a zone.
Mm-hmm.
Indiana didn't know what to do. And so he is doing things like that. I don't know if they would have done that last year. I don't. I don't
I
think
do.
they
They
would have
wouldn't.
at all. They would.
No, they wouldn't. And they wouldn't be going offense defense with Matisse and Seth Curry. And they
Yeah.
wouldn't say, okay, Isaiah Joe's having a good game and Furkan's having a good game. I'm going to leave them in at the end of a game or what have you. And they wouldn't, you knew if you were watching a Sixers game last year that Ben Simmons was going to play the whole first quarter. And no matter what, good, bad, or indifferent. And you knew that with 7 minutes left in the quarter, Joel Embiid was going to come out. And you knew like
Mm-hmm.
it was this whole scripted thing that had nothing to do with the game. And, sometimes he'll pull Ben out first if he's not making an impact, and he'll put Shake in there to create a spark, and he'll do offense defense. And my God, they are defending the pick and roll so much better because that was really hard to watch. So I see a lot of things. I really,
There's a
really
lot.
do. And
I'm
go ahead.
sorry.
No, you go.
And here's the one thing. Like for instance, like you said, the fourth quarter of that game, Seth Curry, who is his son-in-law, right?
Mhm.
Danny Green, who has the 3 rings. They both struggled that game.
Mhm.
They only played 2 seconds of the fourth quarter. It was like they knew that it was like they knew that Indiana was going to foul. So they put those
Yep.
two guys in there, right? To go down there and make a foul shot. After Seth made them, they took the two guys out
Yep.
the game. You know what I mean? Like you said, that would not have happened at all last year. At all. At all.
I honestly love that he starts Danny Green. Danny Green is not, there's games that he won't take a shot for a quarter. And there's games that he'll shoot, 2 for 10. But there's some, it kind of reminds me, and I'm going to sound like an old head Sixer fan, but it reminds me of 1983 when Mark Ivoroni was out there. You knew he
Right.
didn't need the ball, but there were so many things that he did in terms of setting screens and playing defense and grabbing a rebound, that when you have some ball dominant guys on the floor, it makes so much sense. And I love that he's sticking to that. Does that make
Yeah,
sense?
yeah. But Mark Ivor, who you're dating yourself? Like I
You remember
remember
Mark
Mark.
Ivoroni?
Yeah, I remember him because Bobby Jones was the guy. Bobby Jones was the guy, but Bobby Jones was better for the Sixers coming off the bench. And
Right.
you are
Like, you could
exactly
start
right.
Shake Milton, but he's better off
Yeah,
coming off the bench.
I don't like Shake Milton in the starting lineup with these teams. And here's my reason. This is why I agree with you 100%.
You can
Because
say
if
that
you
one
look,
more time. I want to make sure everybody heard that.
I agree with you 100%. But so here's the thing. So Shake Milton comes in and his job, his best attribute is scoring and getting shots, right? He comes in and he gets buckets. You know, when you, like you said, when you have these other guys on there, you need a glue guy. You need a guy who's a veteran. You know, he could go 0 for 5, 0 for 6, but he's on the floor telling them, yo, go over here and do this.
Mhm.
This is what we have to do in this situation. He's that leader. I think that Shake Milton, if he comes in there, then all of a sudden it's like he's scoring a lot of points, but then Tobias isn't getting in rhythm. Joel may get it like, yo, what about me a little bit? You know, Danny isn't getting those shots. So I think that it works out well because, and we all know that they stagger them throughout the game, but
Yes.
it works out well because everyone has a role. Shake knows when he comes in the game, it's time to get buckets. And I didn't like Shake when he was the point guard in the bubble. I
Yeah.
felt like he lost a lot of his aggressiveness. He was thinking too much. He was trying to be a traditional point guard when he's a scorer who handles the ball. You know, so I agree with you. I'm gonna say it a third time, 100%.
And this is why you're my favorite guest. One other thing, I just wanted to hit it before we take a quick break, and that is the JJ Redick rumor. It doesn't make any sense to me to bring him back here. I mean,
No,
the only thing that might make sense is that you could stagger spacing with he and Seth Curry and play them both 20 minutes a game, but it just doesn't make sense. He's lost a step, and he was really not in a position where he could lose a step defensively. And even though I do think he's a great shooter, and I think it would make Embiid happy to do that dribble handoff, I just doesn't make any sense, especially unless it's a buyout. Because if you have to clear space for him, it makes no sense to me.
I now again the fourth time, 100%. And it's not a rumor. Now here's the deal. Like I heard this too. Like I wrote it. It came out that those teams contact the
The
Sixers
Northeast
and
teams,
other
yeah,
teams contact. Yeah, that they contact them. And I was like, why? And the guy was like, well, JJ wants out. JJ wants to come back to the Northeast. So that's the reason why Brooklyn, New York, Philly, and Boston are destinations, right? Or teams they're acquiring. And it all sounds good until you look at the stats and you see where JJ's scoring average is the lowest since his third year in the league when he averaged 6 points coming off the bench. His
I'm not
three
going to let
point
that bother me because I do think if you put him with Embiid, they did have a pretty special connection, and I do think he'd be rejuvenated. I don't think he's lost his shot or his legs. I just don't think he
he
can
lost
play
his shot.
any
I think
defense.
he lost his shot.
Do you?
He's shooting 29% from
Yeah.
three.
In,
Yeah, I
in
mean, yeah, and
yeah,
to a point where he wasn't even. I mean, I don't know if they played last night, but they took him out of rotation.
they did.
Like they played younger guys now. So again, like in the buyout market, I can understand that, but this is the final year of JJ Redick's contract. So let's just say, if I am New Orleans, I'm saying to the Sixers, well, maybe I want some draft picks, and to make the salary fit, you may have to give up someone who has a pretty good salary. I'm not getting rid of Seth Curry.
No, you're
I'm
going
not
to have
getting
to
rid of
give up
Danny
Mike
Green.
Scott, who is not great, but that they already have a weakness at stretch four. And if you give up Scott, that makes it even more of a weakness because JJ Redick's not going to help that.
Now he's not going to help that, but I'm looking at it right now. and I'm seeing how Shake has progressed as a
Mhm.
player, and Shake can shoot the three. I'm looking at Furkan, who we're
Yeah.
all saying like, everybody used to kill Furkan. Furkan is turning out to be really consistent, and he has a pretty good role. I'm looking at Isaiah Joe, who when he was in there the last 4 games, he was shooting 50% from three, like when he was a regular in the rotation.
Mhm.
So I'm saying to myself, like, yeah, maybe in a buyout market, but I don't know if JJ is a guy that I really want to dedicate a lot of minutes to at this particular time, just because I have these other guys. And I'm here to tell you, like, yeah, you can get rid of Mike Scott, but then you still don't have a power forward, backup power forward.
Right.
And then secondly, the thing is, like, they may want some of those young guys, some of those young dudes. And the Sixers, they have a habit of getting rid of guys when they're young, and then all of a sudden we find out, they could turn out to be Jeremy Grant. You know what I mean? So I don't know if I really want to do that. I don't know if I want to do that. If
Christian
I'm
Wood
the
would be a perfect acquisition, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but that's another guy to think
Yeah,
about
exactly.
twice.
Hey, let's take a quick break, Keith. As you and I have talked about, my daughter, who had a brain tumor and had chemotherapy for about 15 months and is doing really, really well. It's inoperable, so we have to get it checked every 4 months. We go back next month. Um, but she wants to give back, and she has consistently given back. She's an amazing kid. She got almost a perfect score in her math SATs. She's ranked
Wow.
number 1 or 2 in her high school right now. We just did a college tour of Columbia. She's just an amazing kid, but she's spending her time with a charity that she started called Small Miracles. And what she does is she's collecting money. Back in December, we collected about $15,000, and she made $15,000 worth of gift bags to bring to Children's Hospital of Philadelphia and give it to the kids in the oncology unit. And what she wants to do now is collect money and get a bunch of those kids that are on chemo, that are newly diagnosed, and get them some iPads so that they have things to do. And while they're going through their treatment, they can blog, they can make it a diary, they can play games, they can kill time, listen to music. So if you want to participate and help out, the charity is called Small Miracles. There's some shirts, there's some sweatshirts, sweatpants that you can buy, and the money goes towards the kids, or you can make a donation. The website is Small Miracles, INC .org, O-R-G, or you can Venmo at Small Miracles. At small_miracles. And if you go on the website, you can read about all about her journey and what she's done. She's done some amazing stuff. So Keith, thanks for giving me a moment. I want to talk about transition back to the Sixers and talk about what they have coming up. I mean, they've got a game in Charlotte tomorrow, which should be a winnable game. And it looks like Embiid's probably going to play. But I'm real curious to get your thoughts about how they match up with Brooklyn. Brooklyn scoring, I think I read a stat, they are scoring the most points in league history over the last 5-10 games. And they're giving up the most points in league history over the last 5-10 games. They don't have an answer for Joel Embiid. Jared Allen was barely an answer, and they don't have him anymore. Um, but can the Sixers guard Harden and Durant? I guess you put Ben on Durant. You take your chances with Harden and Kyrie. With maybe Matisse is going to get some playing time. How do you see that matchup looking?
Yeah, I know Joel Embiid is going to get a lot of points. I,
Yep.
I I see him scoring a lot,
Yeah.
but when I'm looking at it, you're going to have to. Matisse is going to have to play a lot of minutes, like you said. But when you bring Matisse in the game, you're going to lose some of your offensive firepower.
Yeah. Matisse and
You know what
Ben
I
at the
mean?
same time. That hurts you.
Yeah,
So
that hurt.
Joel is definitely the go-to, but you're gonna have to make sure that you're gonna have those minutes out there because you need perimeter defense desperately.
Exactly. A lot of these teams that they lost to, like the Wizards, I mean, they have two all-star guards, and both of them hit threes in the last 5 seconds.
Yeah.
Other teams they lost to had, dominant guards. So to me, is one of those things. It's going to come down. I mean, of course, it's going to come down to guard play, but they're going to have to be able to create their own shots. Now, again, if they can defend, I know they Doc Rivers and them are pleased with some of their defensive performances, but this is going to be a true test because the thing is, like we're talking about this in the past. Ben would defend Kyrie, and he would have success with Kyrie. But then if you put Ben on Kyrie, then who's going to guard Harden? Who's going to guard Durant?
I guess you have
Now,
to try Tobias on Durant and hope for the best, right?
yeah, I guess.
Maybe they can sign
I
Corey
guess
Brewer to another 10-day and put him on Harden.
maybe. I mean, this might sound crazy to you, but I think a DeAndre Jordan isn't an offensive type of guy. A type of player like he may get a couple lobs, but and I know it sounds crazy because you'll probably put Joel on skates, so to speak. But he's your best defender, like on big as far as guarding bigs. And with Durant being 7 feet, I mean, why not say, okay, Joe, let's see what you can do a little bit, and then do the cross thing a little bit, cross
But doesn't that
because
play right into Brooklyn's hands by pulling Embiid out away from the rim?
I guess it depends on where my man's
I
skating
like your
up at.
thought
Yeah,
process, but I'm
yeah. I
thinking if
mean,
I'm yeah,
it could depend on it, but I just see if it's not Embiid on him or Simmons on him, he's going to get like 50. Now, do you want to live with that? And then all of a sudden, when you start worrying about him, then everyone else is going to get off. I mean, that's just a problem for them to have.
yeah.
Now, again, like Joel, you have to hope that Joel can get 50 for you guys to stay in there. Ben is going to have to attack. No, you're going to need Joel to get 50, Tobias to get at least 28. You guys to have a chance.
And it's gotta be
It's
one of
two.
those Ben Simmons games where he attacks the rim because there's really not gonna be anybody that can stop him.
Exactly, exactly. That's it. You're exactly right. And to me, that's a true test because at the end of the day, Brooklyn to me is going to be the team that you want to compare yourself to
Yeah.
because I think it's still early days for them. We all know that. I mean, they're going to go out there and get a center. I mean, we know
They'll get a buyout for
somehow,
sure.
they're going to get one. And I think that Brooklyn is going to be the team that's going to come out of the East. I really do. So if I'm the Sixers, this is a barometer right here to say, okay, well, okay, let's see if Ben can handle it. Let's see what Tobias is going to do.
Mhm.
And then let's see what we're missing, and we have to go out and go get it.
I mean, if somehow Tobias can match Durant, you got a shot because then Embiid is gonna go crazy. If he can guard Durant and kind of hang, he's not going to stop Durant, but if he can hold Durant in the low 30s and he can score in the mid upper 20s, fine. And somehow Ben can neutralize Kyrie. And then you just throw a lot of guys at Harden and do your best. I guess that's your shot.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I mean, I
Tough
understand. I
order.
know they've been struggling.
Yeah.
That's going to be a tough game.
I
That's
mean,
going to be a
Daryl
tough.
Morey's going to be watching that game with a notepad because I think you're right. They're the measuring stick right now.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting. Keith, I love having you on the show, man. I always love talking to you. I always love reading your stuff. For those idiots out there that don't know you, tell them where they can find you. Tell them where they can read you. Tell them where they can listen to you.
You can listen to me on Locked On 76ers podcast. You can read me in the Philadelphia Inquirer. Go to inquirer.com. And if you're in the Philly area, you can pick up a paper at Philadelphia Inquirer, Philadelphia Daily News. And you can follow me on Twitter at Pompe on Sixers.
You have to do that, folks. Keith is, in my opinion, the best reporter in the city because whenever there's news to be broken for the Sixers, it's Keith, and that's the go-to guy for me. There's other good reporters out there, but Keith is my go-to guy, and he should be yours as well. So, guys, if you enjoyed this podcast and you want to listen to others, please subscribe to the Painted Lines on YouTube and follow me. My name is Mike Small, at Real Mike Small on Twitter. And, hopefully you enjoy some of the tweets and some of the content that we provide. I had a great podcast last week with George Lynch, so I'd recommend you listening to that. Painted Lines has all kinds of good stuff on culture and sports and all the city sports. Some good stuff with JT Real Muto, the new Eagles coach, and all kinds of good stuff. So subscribe to the Painted Lines. Keith Pompe, thank you for the good information flow. Good having you on the podcast, my friend.
Thanks for having me, buddy.
All right, we'll see you next week.